Thanks for joining our open demo session here today, right? So it's going to be showing a little bit about cmBuilder. I'm going to do a quick platform overview and demo for you guys, right? So just talking a little bit about who we were and who we are and like why we built this product, right? So cmBuilder is just like a visual planning platform that makes like construction planning easy and like accessible for uh, all the construction professionals, right, involved in the construction project. So we have launched this product 5 years ago, and we have now about like 450 customers worldwide, right? So more than 10,000 projects have been simulated in cmBuilder up to date, and we have like a global customer base, like people all over the world is using cmBuilder today. Like more than 80 educational institutions are on the platform. We have like a lot of students using cmBuilder on their kind of like capstone projects and so on. And this is just a couple of examples of customers, large customers that we have on the APAC area, but we have like many more customers to using cmBuilder today, right? So one of them, I'm gonna start with like the end over here, like showing a completed scenario for cmBuilder, right? And the main idea of the product is to give you the correct set of tools for you to create a simulation that would show the steps of construction and identify challenges and help you plan properly and with more accuracy, more precision, like as fast as possible, right? So the platform is completely web-based, and the idea here is that most of our customers are using cmBuilder today to like communicate better internally with their customers as well, but also plan better and really illustrate the Gantt chart and the steps of your schedule, right? So majority of the use case today, like cmBuilder, is one for the planning and construction, but also for pursuits, like to win more jobs, to make sure that you're kind of like assessing the communicating properly the stages of construction to your customer. And here I'm going to show like an example of a finalized project where you can see at the bottom here like a timeline that shows all the steps of construction. And basically the way that you start is, yes, you just type in an address and the area is generated for you automatically. Then you can enhance that area with like more information like traffic, animations, the existing objects on your site, the surrounding elements from Google Maps, and so on and so forth. And then the idea here is that if I flip through these milestones, we're going to start to see different stages of construction, right? So, for example, like this kind of like chain wire mesh with these gates have been removed at this stage. So, like on the next stage, we can see like what are the new elements that are coming in, like for example, plywood fencing, like where these things will be placed, like which areas I'm gonna be closing during my project, right? So this is my sidewalk has been closed over here. This is my delivery zone. There will be no parking during construction on this area where my muster point is located and my offices as well. So access points, gates, and all these elements, right? So as I flip through my milestones, I'm gonna start to see more stages of construction and more elements coming into the view. Everything that you see in the screen that is not a building, it's are actually elements that you're going to find in our library. We have a library of more than 3,000 objects that you can simply drag and drop and use them in your planning. And the majority of these items will be modeled by model using a actual kind of like manufactured equipment in the view. Like for example, we have this power driver over here, and this is all these elements are up to scale and following the specifications of the manufacturer, right? So like for example, if I open the specs of this object, you see that there are more like information related to it, so you can like take more informed decisions, right? So we have like bunch of different objects that will encompass like equipment, vehicles, logistics elements, public vehicles, site conditions, safety and personnel elements, like for example, traffic controls, you have cones, you have barriers, you have like a bunch of different elements that are relevant for you to plan your logistics, right? And you can use these to create a logistics plan, just like the one that you're seeing right now, showing like all the elements related to delivery, like your access points for your trucks and things like that, where you're your toilets are, where your cameras are, like what is your first aid station, your site office, and all of that. But you can also connect that to your timeline to show those different stages, right? So as I navigate through these milestones, we will see like the different stages of construction over here. For example, right now the excavation starts, and then I can see the trucks coming in and out of my site. I can create an animation showing the access point and like how my trucks are gonna actually going into the site and see their swap path to see if there is any conflict with the existing elements like fences and all of that. So making sure that things will fit and the truck will be able to make the turns. And then you can also see over here like the stages of excavation. So all of this is modeled inside of the platform. You just draw a shape and you define like how deep that area is going to go on that stage. If you're going to have like sloped faces like this area over here, or if you're going to have like straight faces to do shotcrete or any type of shoring. What are the safety measures you're going to need to use in terms of like fall protection, where you're going to be storing your stockpile during excavation, where is your temporary energy access coming from, and so on, right? So as I navigate through this, we're going to see more like elements coming into the view, like personnel, like placement of toilets, dumpsters, and so on and so forth, right? So again, all of these equipment can be animated, and they are also they are built to the specification of the manufacturer. So you're always making sure that things will fit, and then you're working with real life constraints, right? Because let's face it, the state of the industry today is that people will do logistics planning onto the PDFs where they just mark up with like squares. Those squares don't have a scale. They don't have like any intelligence into it. You don't know what they are until you look at a legend. And even worse, when you try to communicate this with your customers or internally, you have to keep comparing those drawings with Gantt charts and and not understand, but imagine how the progress of your site is going to take place. Whereas in a product like this, you can create a simulation that is very complete, like this one, in record time, right? And you can bring this to your pursuits. You can use this to communicate with your supers and identify challenges even before you set the foot at the construction site, right? So we have like many users using this to win more jobs and make sure that they show that they are the best person to do that job on their pursuits, right? So you're gonna start seeing over here like a stage where my concrete elements will show up because I have imported into this scenario here like two models, one structural model and one architectural model to show the steps of construction, right? So you can connect these elements from your models into the timeline, so you can define when they're gonna show up to represent completion, right? So at this stage, I'm done with my columns on level 1. Now I'm gonna go forward with my live deck on level 2 and so on and so forth. However, if you don't have a 3D model to work with, like if you don't have any BIM model available, you can always like build the models in the platform itself. So this is an example of a scenario that is built completely with models done inside cmBuilder. The only important element that you see over here is the Google Maps model that you can bring it over and locate on your view. Um, and all the rest is done inside of the platform. So like all of this fencing, the excavation, like I showed before, and whatnot. But now we're gonna start to see some elements for the building itself, like the core of your building, and like also the formwork that goes along with it, what type of like shoring I'm gonna using at the stage over here is different than the one before. This is it's a kind of like a second pile one. The other one was like a shotcrete, and I can see now like the progression of like these construction stages, right? So my core goes up a little bit, then there's new formwork showing up over here, then there is some like construction concrete equipment being placed outside of my fence area, but blocking some parking lots from a like the neighbor of sorts. So we can actually like visualize all of that in a very real life and accurate representation of your site, right? So we will see like more stages, like for example, the creation of these massings, like you can actual like model elements like the walls inside of the platform as well. And once you complete all of these stages, you can see like a completed building done all in cmBuilder, right? So without any imported 3D models. Of course, if you have a 3D model to work with, you will skip some of the steps on like modeling, and then you're gonna work with things with more details, right? But it's connected to like a Revit file, like an IFC file, FBX, and Navisworks files. You can import them all in here, and even if you have a new version of that file later, you can bring in that new version. You can right click, just say update this with a new model, and then from that update, you everything that remains like the same will still be connected to the timeline, and you don't need to worry about like reconnecting a bunch of parts. You only need to connect the new ones. So it's quite straightforward to that point. And at the scene, we are seeing here like the assembly of a crane, right? So this is a very challenging point on the construction stage because you're going to need to block some areas for deliveries. The whole site kind of like needs to stop for that. And you need to make sure that your mobile crane will be able to make all the picks to place them in the right location. And once your crane is assembled, you can see the actual view like that, and you can turn on for any crane like what is the coverage envelope for that crane, where I can see the total coverage of that element in here. And if I want to like figure out, for example, if this crane can make a pick at a specific location, I can just position my load at that defined location, let's say for example over here, and I can check like what is my load capacity at this point. So like I have 130 feet. Actually, let's change this to metric, right? So let's say that this is maybe showing like it's 40 meters away from the mast. I can always go into my spec sheet over here and like check what is my load capacity at the 40-meter like range, right? So this all this information, it's at arm's reach. You don't need to go fetch like that information or spend hours looking for something that is right in the platform, right? So as we keep navigating through this, we're gonna see the different steps of construction, like the placement of a hoist, where that hoist is located, which areas I need to keep open for the hoist access, like when I'm gonna be placing some material kind of like loading platforms, right? How far behind my facade is compared to my live deck, so it can show all of those elements in there, and all of this connected to my timeline. So I can get all the way to the end where we will see um, the completed scene of this construction, right? And I can see like the delivery state and use this as my marketing piece on the pursuit or something like that, right? So the idea in cmBuilder is that you will go ahead and create a presentation for these elements, and then from this presentation, you can always hit play over here, and you can control a different camera angles that you want to show in your view, like when you're communicating this with a customer. And then that from that point onwards, like you can add annotations like showing where the gates are, where your offices are, and add more information from that you consume. These annotations, you could add links to them as well, so you can point to drawings, you can point to let's say you can point to like live feeds from cameras and whatnot. And when you hit play the presentation like in the full screen, this is what it looks like. So something that is very kind of like dynamic. And as you can see, we can also create an animation showing the direction of the pores. So like you can like animate if you like your elements coming from left to right, if it's coming bottom up, and all of that, right? So very complete, and you can also highlight this in different colors and things like that. And this is a live link, so it's not a video in the sense that I can hit pause at any moment over here, and I can start rotating my camera. That way, I will have like a much more interactive sense of like consuming this information. Instead of just watching a video or looking at still images, I'm actually interacting with my 3D space. And this is something that you can share with your customers quite easily. You don't need to like send files or anything like that. You can simply export a live link to this, where like the person that has that link will be able to open your scenario and like see all the simulation, interact with that, and without any login. If you want to share files, you can share images, you can share a video from that as well. But you have all of these options, right? So let's say that I'm done with the simulation, and before I submit that to a customer or something like that, I want to make sure that my team reviews it, so I can send the link to the simulation to my team, and they can go over here and comment and add comments all over the site. So for example, a superintendent can come in here and like just say, hey, I don't think that this gate is in the right location, so I'm gonna go ahead and add a comment in here where I can just like tag someone. Let's say this person here, Javier, will like, I will tag him and say like, is this the right location for the gate, right? So that person can will receive an email with this comment in a link where they can click on that link and open this right away and then just answer here, right? So the collaboration aspect of cmBuilder is very extensive in a way that you can involve more people without having them at the same session at the same time or on a call like this. You can just tag them around and they can come in here and comment on the features, right? So we built this platform to be extremely easy to use, to the point that today half of our user base is made out of non-tech savvy people, people that never touched a 3D modeling tool before, like superintendents, estimators, project managers, and people that have zero time to waste, but don't have the correct tools as of today to show like or to explain what is going on in their minds, right? So it's a way to illustrate their thought process, their planning, and their schedule, right? So I'm gonna show also like over here an example of like another project that is a horizontal project, like infrastructure one, where you can import like the 3D models from Google like this one, and then you can define how you're gonna separate that. Because like for example over here, this project was a demolition of an existing overpass to replace it with a new one, and an extension of this lane over here, right? So if I navigate for this, I will see the whole process of like how the team went through like on the demolition stages, like the execution of new structural parts, the placement of cranes, like the blocking of roads, like there's a blocking over here, there's a blocking down there, and all of that, like showing all the types of overhangs that I'm going to have, the formwork that I'm going to be using, where I'm going to be working first, the backfill for like these retaining walls, and so on and so forth, right? So all of these stages can be replicated in the platform in a very fast and easy way, so just showing like all of the kind of like the inspection and load testing, the kind of like disassembly of the stage of the construction kind of like site over here, and then coming down to the highway to expand the lane and see like all the progress that was done over there, right? So imagine bringing this in a meeting with like a bunch of people that like have different levels of understanding of construction. Like anyone can understand what's going on, even if they are not like well versed on this specific type of project, like infrastructure, for example. Like you will still understand all of that compared to drawings and Gantt charts, right? So yeah, so an example about like this same scenario here, for example, like just to show how easy it is simulator is to use. Like of course, like I'm an experienced user, but like I will be able to create this whole simulation in probably like less than a day, to this level of quality, like adding all of these animations and all of that. But probably like a new user or someone that just started like using the platform completely from scratch with like no 3D modeling experience so far, will be able to create this in a couple of days, just to understand, like to get to this level of quality, it's quite easy, right? Just showing another example over here. Let's say that you want more quality on the surroundings and on the imports. You can import a drone scan as well into the platform. So this is just an example showing the demolition stage for this building. So we can navigate through this and I can show like where the demolition starts, like when all of this building is removed, like my fencing all around the site. And then as I navigate through this, I can see where like my excavation starts, where it like advances to, and like showing all the process of excavation, how you're going to access the site and all of that, right? So you can also use your own references like of scans and drone imagery, drone modeling to get like better accuracy on these representations, right? So this first 20 minutes was just to show like a little bit of the capacity of the platform. So let's go ahead and see what we can build here in like maybe in 30 minutes, right? So this is just like a starting point where like I got the same scenario over here, but removed all the timeline, remove all the work that was done over here. I only kept the traffic that you can see over here in the surroundings. So the first thing that we would do is just to import a drawing. I can import PDF files, JPEG files, and PNG files. And basically, if I import like this logistics plan here, I can go ahead and easily position this drawing on my site by simply selecting 2 points that would be used as a reference for anchoring that scale and the rotation and of that drawing, right? So if I click over here on the line position, I can go ahead and like find 2 points on these two images, and that way the image will be aligned with the background, right? So if I select these 2 points over here and this lighting post base, and let's go and find that same one on this other side. So when I do that, you see that my drawing has be like placed correctly around my site. I could fine tune this by just like moving this around, right? But I will like just position it again where it was. And when I hit confirm, that drawing is over in my site like that, but I want it to be projected on the terrain so I can see it like flushed with the ground, right? So from that point onwards, I have now a very good representation of my site logistics plan, and then I can go in and start placing elements on my view and so on and so forth, right? So next step would be to bring in my model. So I'm gonna bring in my structural file here. And when I load this structural element, it will show up in my view like that. And then I can rotate this model to align with my drawing, right? So just to make it easy, I'm gonna just copy the same rotation that I applied to the drawing, and I'm gonna apply it to the model. And let me just finish this, and then we're just gonna rotate this 9 degrees, and now this is aligned, and I can move this model to the right spot over there, right? So if your model is geolocated, you will be able to use that geolocation inside of the platform. Like you just define what is the georeferencing system that you're gonna be using, and then the model shows up in the right spot, right? And additionally to that, if I wanna use the architectural model now, and I import it in here. What is my architecture model? I believe this is the one that I want to use. So when I bring that architecture model, it shows up at the same location of my structural model. So I don't need to position it again manually, right? But if these models are geolocated, they'll show up in the right spot anyways, right? So now that I have the drawing in the right location, my model in the right location, I'm just gonna go ahead and create my sequence of execution. So I'm gonna I could add milestones manually over here if I didn't have a schedule file to work with, but since I have a schedule, I'm gonna simply import like a, let's say an MS project file or like a P6 file. So you can like select whatever like file formats you have for your schedule, bring it over to cmBuilder, and we will see the list of all the tasks that you have over there. And then from this list, we're just gonna select what are the dates that we want to illustrate. So in this case over here, I'm gonna select a couple of dates. Not gonna put all of the tasks in the schedule because otherwise it will take a long time over here for me to finish. But I'm gonna just put in like a few dates that are gonna be relevant for my construction sequencing. Okay. So when I do that, I can simply hit next, and all of this staging here is going to be connected to my timeline, right? So I have all of these dates that are connected to my schedule file that I can simply update whenever I need to like update the dates with a new version of my file and so on. Okay, so now that I have the timeline defined over here at the bottom, I can go ahead and say that I want to create my site mobilization date, right? So to do that, I'm gonna like just show my drawing that I'm gonna be using as a reference, and then I'm gonna start placing some resources, right? So I'm gonna go into the resource and I'm gonna put in my construction site hoarding, and it's super easy to draw that. You just like place some points, and then the whole kind of like fencing line will be drawn for you automatically. So when I hit OK, you see that the fencing shows up like that. And if I notice that the fencing goes through, like, for example, the ramp of this other building, I can easily just like draw it again, like adjust the drawing to like represent the changes that I want to show. Okay. So let's just add a few more items here on our view. I'm gonna go ahead and put in a gate. So this gate will be replacing like my fence panels at that location. And I could add another one over here, but I'm just like gonna go a little bit faster and maybe add some containers like offices for this area. So let's go into logistics and facilities. If there is any element that you want in our library that is not in there, we can build that for you. So you just need to put in like a resource request, and we will like make sure that the object will be added to the library. So it's super easy. Just go over here in the question mark, do a resource request, and we will go ahead and like build that for you. Okay. So there's another office over here. So let's go ahead and add this guy and maybe add the crane as well. So the crane is like probably the most expensive piece of equipment that you're gonna have on your construction site. So this is what the type of thing that keeps your superintendents up at night. So we want to make sure that you get it right, but also quickly, right? So I can just go in here and like find that JSO 300 crane, place that crane on the right spot, and then it will show up like this with the correct sizes of that equipment and so on. And now I just need to adjust it to this building, right? So I place the screen according to the drawing, but if I go into the adjust function over here, I can see that this crane, it's probably like even if I place it with the same size of of like what is described on my drawing over there is like 150 something meters. Oh, like feet. Oh, I need to change it to meters over here. Sorry. Let me change it to metric. There you go. So as you can see, like you only have like a predefined values for the length of the crane because that's what the manufacturer allows you to do so. So if I try to like replicate what the drawing shows, I can see that there is like a huge area over here that is kind of like that's an overkill. So I can maybe move this crane to the middle point of my building and then like bring it over to like a smaller dimension. So very quickly you can validate the work that has been defined by your drawing, but also like corrected to find like complications or like even save money just by having the correct size of the equipment like assigned for. Okay. So now with my crane in the right spot and my other elements over here in the right spot, I can go ahead and sequence this whole building, right? So I prefer to sequence the building like one model at a time. So I'm gonna do a quick thing over here, which is basically isolating this whole building in my view and then also hiding the terrain, because that way I can look at just that model and then start assigning those parts to the correct stages, right? So I want these footings over here to be placed on this milestone for concrete footings. So I'm going to activate that guy and I'm going to click on one of these footings and I will see how the tree structure is organized over here. So basically I have a foundation level. So basically I'm selecting a group of parts over here and say like, okay, I want to assign all of these elements to the pour concrete footings, but there is also a milestone for slab on grade. So I'm going to deactivate just the slab on grade and like remove the parts that are not needed, right? And then I can select just the footings and say, I want to put these guys to start at this milestone. So when I go back and forth, like you see that, that's when these elements will show up. But the easiest way to build our simulation here is to turn on my sequence helper, because that way I can color code by models to see how they are connected to the timeline. So everything that I see over here has a color code based on that connection. So I can easily like deactivate some of these colors so I can select elements that haven't been sequenced yet. So for example, for slab on grade, I'm going to select my slab on grade and put it over here. And then when I go to level 2 slab, that element's not there anymore. So like I won't make the mistake of selecting it again and then putting on another milestone. So I can now select a bunch of parts and say, I want to show all the elements up to level 2 slab on this milestone. So I will like set that this should begin to this milestone, and you see that the object becomes green because it belongs now to the current milestone, right? So that way I can very quickly finish my simulation just by selecting a bunch of parts and then assigning them to the correct stages, right? Of course, if you have a tree structure like from your model that is very well organized, you're going to save some time with this because you can select a bunch of parts from the tree structure itself. But we know that that's not usually the case. You're gonna be given models like in different levels of maturity or quality and so on and so forth. So you have both options. You can use the models that are like the way that they are grouped on their original kind of like software, or you can select the views on the 3D from the 3D space. Okay, so I just sequenced my whole structure model. So like if I go back over here to like the first milestones, you see that this will show up as I go forward over here, like defining that those steps of construction, right? So now I'm done with my structure, I can work with my architectural model. So if I show up my architectural model, I can just go into the envelope stages and then start assigning these parts to the envelope stages. So if I work with the architectural file now, I can select over here level 1 and level 2, and then put them onto this stage, you know, and then go into level 4, and then assign level 3 and 4 to that stage, and then go over here to level 6, and then assign 5 and 6, level 8, 7, and 8 to this, and then 10. I'm gonna finish the rest. Okay, so now, like, even if I turn this off, I can see, like, in my view, like, what are the elements that are visible or not in here. So if I go back into my first milestone, I can very easily see what are the elements that are assigned to each one of these stages. And also if I keep like the blue color open, I can see the previous executed elements and the new ones like in this view. So it's very easy to kind of like coordinate and create sequences of execution just because you have access to all of these. If the structure of your model, you can select things on your view. You have your timeline over there in the bottom, you have a color coding. So there are several different methods to allow you to work very fast. Okay. So now that I have done with my sequence, maybe let's work with our excavation. So if I go back over here to the first milestone and I go into my bulk excavation, I'm going to start creating the shape of my excavation, right? So one thing is that when I turn on the 2D view, see how like I can barely see where my fence line is, just because that fence is a very small like object that you can not really see the thickness for it. So it's over here. See? So what I like to do is to assign an icon view to that fence. So like if I double click on this guy, I can go over here in icon view and say every time that I go into 2D mode, I want to see this fence as a dotted line, a dashed line in yellow. So you get like another reference now for that fence. So like it makes it easy for you to kind of like represent different things in 2D, you know? So you have like this option, and other elements can become icons as well, like this one and this one, that when I go into 3D, you see that it just like it's a fire hydrant, right? So going back to my excavation, I'm gonna I'm gonna start creating my excavation plan, but I want to use my foundation as a reference. So I'm gonna temporarily show my foundation here, like my where my foundation elements are, and then I can go into my earthwork, create a cut, and then from here I can go and select like what is the shape of the cut that I want to do. So let's say that I want to do half of this excavation first. So I can always draw things and then snap this line to the correct shapes of my walls over there, you know? And then when I hit confirm, like this excavation has been created, and then I can just define what is a depth of excavation that I want to go over here. If I want to flush that with the top of my, let's say, my foundation pads, I can just go and say, I want you to go up to this elevation over here, right? But let's add like a centimeter just so we can have like some difference on that. And now I have an excavation done over there, and I can just like now move forward with my excavation to the other half of yours of the site. So this I will add it to the second milestone over here, another excavation cut, where like this, I can simply go in and say, extend this all the way to the end, where we're gonna see that excavation for the foundation, right? So I went a little bit above over there, but that's totally fine. I could adjust that later. Cool. So on maybe the excavation stage 3, I can show more elements like the excavation for my foundation pads, right? So to do that, we have like a very easy way for you to create those excavations, because instead of drawing every single one of these pads, I can simply go in here and click on this project function, where I select an existing object, and this will create the sketch based on that object already. So I can even offset this a little bit to create some clearance for my excavation. And then I can say, okay, I want this excavation to go to the bottom of this foundation pad. And then let's say that's going to be like something like this. And I can slope this out, right, to show that excavation pad over there. So you have like a bunch of like different tools for you to do that. And if you want to create the excavation for the other pads, you can simply duplicate this guy, and then I can go into my sketching function and say, hey, actually you are gonna happen over here, but the second one I'm gonna kind of like extend it to include also like a second pad over here, you know? So when you do that, you have now like a second cut just for those pads, right? So this is just to show how quick it is to create an excavation. I can create excavations with slopes, right? So if I slope these, I can deactivate the walls of the slopes, and I can start like placing now resources to represent what I'm gonna use during this excavation steps, right? So I'm gonna go here and placing like an excavator, and then this excavator, I want to make it move and like animate. So I can just go and apply an animation here to define that excavator, kind of like animations, you know? And then if I move forward, I want this excavator now to go to like this area. So like I have that same excavator showing in different stages. And then maybe this will go back over here on the third milestone, you know, and work like that. And then it's going to be done by this milestone. So like when I go to the next one, that excavator is not there anymore. And I can start populating this with like a bunch of elements, right? Like the sky's the limit over here. Like we have like so many objects in the library that you can just go ahead and add whatever you think that's going to be useful for you at any given stage of your construction site. Okay. So maybe like for example, the crane is not going to be installed like until later in the timeline. So let's say that you're only going to need to use the crane at this stage over here. So I can say, hey crane, you actually should begin from this milestone. So when I go back, now the crane is not there, and then as I advanced on this, like the crane eventually will show up, and then I can also create the crane with like a smaller height, and then as my structure goes up, I can identify when I'm gonna need to make a jump, and then this is the jump moment. So I have now like a crane showing up with different heights based on the needs of my project, right? And just to finalize this and make this a little bit prettier, I'm gonna add a zone here just to like show that this area has been demolished um, on 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 the first date, and we just cleared up the area. So I'm gonna put in like a texture over here for dirt, you know, and then that this is the like my initial stage of like the progress. So as I go through over here, I'm gonna see all of these steps, and then we can see the progress of our construction along with the elements in my view, right? So let's say that I'm done with my simulation. As you can see, I could create like something very fast in 20 minutes. My simulation is done, and then now it's time for me to actually show this to someone. So I'm gonna create my presentation. So here in my presentation mode, I can create a set of camera angles that will define how my construction site will play, right? So as you can see over here, like it will start like that, and then I can zoom in into a location. And then from here, let's say that I want to change my camera angle, and I want to actually save this camera angle as my hero shot, and then I will add some callouts, right? So I can put a callout over here that the callout already grabs the name of the parts that I am working on. So I can position it a little bit better to kind of like enhance my view. And then so let's say this is going to be my construction offices, and then I can make it like that. And then I will add another call out over here that's gonna actually go into the other side. And then I want the stem to be placed like that. And this will be, let's say, toilets will be here. And then let's put the last call out is gonna be just my gate location here. And can you put it over there? Gate, main gate. Okay. So you can identify elements on your view very quickly like that. So as you play like your presentation over here, you can see like that these elements will show up in your view, and then you can like adjust your camera angles if you need to do so, you know. So you can recapture that. And then on the next milestone where the excavation starts, I will not see those callouts anymore. And then I can keep adjusting my camera angles if I need to, or I can simply keep them wherever they are, right? So I'm just gonna add another camera angle here, and maybe when we get to the crane placement, I'm just gonna go and do a shot from above like that, and I can go in and say that I want to capture this camera angle. Actually, it's a little bit crooked. So let's put it like that, capture this camera angle, and then I can put in my call out here to identify that this is a JSO 300 crane of sorts, right? And then if I wanna just put in that this has like, I don't know, 40-meter reach, like something like that, right? So very easily we have like this kind of like captured here in the view. And then let's just assume that this is gonna be like all the way through. Like actually, I'm gonna need you to a jump at some point here. Let's say at this milestone, I'm gonna jump my view to this angle, and that's going to stay there until the end. So when I play the presentation, everything that I created so far, like you see that like all of these steps of construction are actually captured in the view and like easily presented to like a viewer or someone that like that I'm gonna bring in a pursuit, or like, or I can put this in, open this in a trailer to see like how the supers and like the field supervisors will give like their feedback about the plan that I have, or like a safety manager can identify challenges over here for safety. You can have your schedulers like updating this according to the new versions of your schedule, your P6, and so on and so forth, right? So very complete, very easy to use. You can see that I created like a whole simulation here in 25 minutes, right? And this is the main like value of the platform, is to give you like the correct set of tools to visually plan and make sure that everybody's at the same page on like your construction progress, and yeah, make sure that everything goes well with your planning. Cool. So yeah, I'm gonna stop here for questions. Jeff, any questions from your end? You can send them on the chat. But of course, like if you have more questions, you can reach out to our team, right? So we are glad to help over here. Like cmBuilder, like every new customer will have like a training included on their subscription, and also the support is unlimited, right? So if you're interested in the platform, please reach out on our website. We like cmbuilder.io, where you can see every information related to pricing and all of that, and just book a demo in our commercial team. We'll reach out to give you more information. Okay, I think that's a wrap. Awesome. Thanks for coming, Jeff. And yeah, see you guys then.